5 months ago, this past Friday, on the day of my birthday, my 51st birthday, I quit drinking. Thank you. Like a number of people that I've told this to, I'd found myself sliding during pandemic times into a nightly habit of pouring myself a bourbon, and then maybe a second bourbon, and then maybe what my grandmother used to call a dividend. And over time, the pours got more generous and more numerous. Unlike a number of people I've told this to, I had trouble hitting reset, reducing and moderating my intake. I'd make resolutions, and then the shame of having not stuck to them would well up and lodge in my throat like a bitter, hard candy. I got irritable with the people I love most. I began to notice how sluggish and depressed I was feeling on days after. Don't get me wrong, I was functioning fine in my daily life. I had no DUIs or blackouts or hangovers or missed work days or anything like that. But it was becoming clear that my behavior was floating beyond the reach of my willpower. It was becoming clear that I needed help. The first AA meeting I attended was online. Vowing to be fully honest, I told the other attendees that I wasn't sure I was an alcoholic and couldn't say I had a desire to stop drinking, which is actually the one and only requirement for attendance. Nobody told me to leave, though. They said, keep coming back. They said, you're welcome here. They went on to talk about their own first faltering steps into this fellowship, carrying all their shame and self-hatred and finding this incredible space of non-judgment. And over the months, that's what I've experienced as well. Acceptance, honesty, humility, compassion, community. People sharing the moments of suicidal despair they have been through, the crazy, destructive logic they used to employ and still fall prey to, the immense losses of jobs, relationships, driver's licenses, custody of children, and the slow rebuilding of a life of joy and hope with the help of the program. I could not have done it without this community is a common refrain. At a recent meeting, one woman talked about how she was wrestling to accept, to truly accept a relative's attitude towards her. A person with over 2 decades of sobriety recounted how he was so angry at God for the death of his son that he could not pray until his sponsor got him to pray for the willingness to pray. A woman related that her last adult child had just moved to Wisconsin. And when she told an AA friend that she had no more family in Michigan, the friend said, you still have family here. We are your family, and we've got your back. We are your family, and we've got your back. There's a danger in my sharing this journey with you that the sermon becomes all about Pastor Ian and did you hear and was he ever drunk at church? I promise I wasn't. And doesn't he drink communion wine on Sundays? Yes, I'm able to make that exception without endangering my recovery. So let me just say that I'm happy to talk more about my experiences offline if you're interested, and especially if you might have a concern about your own or a loved one's drinking. But the real reason that I'm risking homiletical TMI today is because I want to be able to inspire you as I have been inspired by the ways I have found God at work in the recovery community. You know, today's Trinity Sunday, the day we celebrate this ancient doctrine that God is three beings and one being all at the same time. Now, I'm not going to bother trying to make intellectual sense of this contradictory idea because, frankly, I don't find that very rewarding. But here's what does make sense to me. The doctrine of the Trinity is a way of saying that God is essentially a relational God. We say God is three in one because for us, God emerges in the interplay between, in that which connects, in the web of relationship that forms community. God is love, 1 John 4. And that's what AA manifests at its best. That is the magic sauce. Accompanying, belonging, sharing experience, strength, and hope with one another. However you may wrestle with or reject or make sense of God, God shows up anyway in concrete and undeniable ways in the loving actions of other people. At its best, the program embodies that transforming process that Paul speaks of in today's passage from Romans, when he observes that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not disappoint us because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. We are your family, and we've got your back. That's our calling in the church, to make the space for that relational triune God among us, to point to the presence of that God who is love in the world around us, to participate with what that God is up to build a web of community that says, we are your family and we've got your back. It's funny, but one of the biggest fears I had about quitting alcohol was that I would never again achieve that particular loose, heady sense of fun that comes when you get a mild buzz among friends. And one setting where I've particularly enjoyed that buzz is among two of my oldest buddies. The three of us, yes, three of us, have been meeting for dinner in an informal monthly men's group for a couple of decades now. As soon as I told them about the AA journey I began in January, and even though I insisted that they shouldn't change their behavior on my account, they quietly stopped drinking around me. Talk about a sign of the God who is love. And I will say that as in other areas of my life, our time together has only gotten better. I, for one, feel more present, more grateful to be sharing this stage of middle adulthood with children grown and parents aging, and the preciousness of our days clarifying as they begin to dwindle. More awake to the holy energy that passes among our little Trinity when we're together. About an hour after our most recent evening out, during which we'd spoken of things both weighty and light, one of them texted this sentiment to the other two of us. I didn't even drink alcohol. And I want to say, I love you, man. Amen.